Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour being brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, even Medicare products. They do everything they can to save you money while making sure you're fully insured, because customer service means everything to them. At Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Always a pleasure to be joined by my good friend Sweeny Murti. Great to have you back, my friend.
Hi, Steve. How are you? So nice to talk to you.
So nice to talk with you. It is an interesting time in baseball. Just had a terrific Dodger-Yankee series. In many ways. I mean, it's only, here is June. What did you learn, if anything, out of that?
Good question. I think what I learned was that, well, one of the things I learned, right, is that we have not been overhyping Ohtani and Judge. You know, I think you and I have talked about these guys before, and just kind of what I'm talking about. But if you watch these guys perform, or maybe like if you were watching these guys for the first time, and you know, or you don't see them often, you're a fan of another team, you saw them on the national broadcast, you're getting an idea of how special those guys really are. How incredible the numbers they're putting up are. You know, when you start putting up lists of people that these guys compare to statistically, and some of the photos next to those names are in black and white, you understand that we're not overhyping what these guys are, how impressive they're doing what they're doing. I think now in doing so, when we make those comparisons, a lot of time it's always, oh, well, those guys were better. You know, these guys are still right in the prime of their careers. You know, we're so early in a snapshot of what these guys are that it's really hard to see where the final numbers stack up when they're done. Now, we know the way the game is played that, you know, Shohei Ohtani isn't going to end up with 200 wins and 600 homers or something like that. Or, you know, even Judge, just, you know, being as a guy who started a little bit later at a college, you know, having to play the necessary 20 years to put up some of these crazy numbers, that feels like a little bit of a stretch too, as far as like eclipsing numbers being number one on all these all-time lists. But my goodness, just appreciate how amazing these two players are. And if you get a chance to see them again on a big stage in a few months, you know, there's going to be a lot of people who hate that idea that it's the Yankees and the Dodgers again. But I mean, you know, in my mind, it's a lot like watching, you know, Bird and Magic in the NBA Finals back-to-back years. There's something to be said when I think we watch sports to watch greatness, and I think when you're watching, you know, a baseball team usually, you know, has enough flaws even the great ones, because even the great ones lose 60 games a year. But you understand that there's greatness there because they are, able to outperform the rest of the league, or at least, be on par, be in that position by the time you get to October. And you see two of the stars like that, man. It's Steve, it is so much fun to watch those guys. You stop what you're doing when they come to bat.
We know Judge hits with power, and he's usually hit for good average. I mean, always has. But what has allowed him to become a better hitter where now the average is exceptional?
Kind of constantly working at this. I mean, he still carries a reminder in his phone of his batting average from 2016. He came up in August that year, played for a little over a month before an injury, an abdominal injury, shut him down for the rest of the season, and his batting average is under 200. Like, it's been kind of a motivating factor for him for a long time. But I think a lot of understanding the swing and the strike zone, it just gets deeper. I mean, when you get that much into it, you're a student of this. And it's a really good point, Steve, about like what the high batting average means in an era when we kind of discount batting average as a singular number. We want the overall picture. Batting average doesn't tell you a whole lot. If it did, you might think, Luis Arraez is a better hitter than Shohei Ohtani. But clearly not the case. You take a whole picture of on-base percentage, a slugging percentage, and the damage, the damage that can be done through the course of all your at-bats. What Judge is doing is pretty magnificent. I don't know where he ends up. I think it's pretty clear that he doesn't hit 400 because nobody does it.
It's too difficult.
It's just impossible to do that, wearing down over the course of a long season. What you're doing but if you look at how many different pitchers he faces a night, that is a big part of this compared to the number of pitchers that Ted Williams faced when he hit 406 in 1941. How many times did he face a pitcher 4 times in a game? How many different pitchers were in the league back then? That's a much different number for Aaron Judge, and that goes to the number of home runs that he hits too. So you can use that kind of viewpoint to marvel at both batting average and the power. Excuse me. I think the other thing about that is if you look at the overall batting average in the league compared to what it was, I mean, even just when we were younger watching the game, batting average has gone completely down, and here's a guy who's, if he's still hitting over 350 in a couple of weeks, it's going to be amazing. So that's kind of a number. 350 is probably the number I'm kind of interested to see if he can flirt with, because a lot of these guys first half of the season will be, you'll have guys who hit 400 into June, but you usually end up seeing guys settle into the 330s, 340s in a great year. If Judge can be in that 350, 360 range, well, I was perusing the Yankees single-season batting average leaders earlier this week, just to kind of get a little perspective on what I'm looking at, what a number would look like. Let's say if you finished at 370. If the top 10 or top 15 batting averages in Yankees history are all littered with Ruth and Gehrig. Ruth hit 393 one year, and hit 370 multiple times, and Gehrig was the same thing. But the number of people who've hit over 350 in a Yankee uniform, it's Mickey Mantle, Don Mattingly. Beyond that, and if you look at the eras, then you're talking about post 1947, post integration, expansion, all these other things. You're bringing a larger pool of people into the game. Derek Jeter had 349 one year, and that was the closest he got to 350. So if Aaron Judge can be in that stratosphere somewhere, even this discussion into even as another discussion where we're talking about Triple Crown as a possibility, because that's where we were in 22 and 24, where he's flirting with this idea of a Triple Crown because his average is so high, and he ends up getting beaten out. Even in the midst of these amazing seasons. But historical context of how batting average has declined and what he can do by taking, he's not flicking the ball into right field. He's still taking these massive swings and making contact with the ball at a rate that, guys like Rod Carew were doing.
Right. How important is it for baseball as a whole to work its way out of the Sacramento and Steinbrenner Field part of it, to get the sport more on track, and also so they can open the door for expansion, which would then put it in two new markets in baseball?
Yeah, I think expansion is probably something that you're almost inevitably heading toward, as because nobody's really ever shot it down, right? Nobody ever says, no, we're not looking for, we're going to stay right at 30. But you're talking about 15 teams in each league, and the schedule has kind of been shifted around to accommodate that. 16 and 16 seems to make pretty good sense. And if there's enough interest out there, then the expansion will obviously, the talk of it will obviously be ramped up a little bit. But, yeah, I think those markets probably have to settle themselves first to figure out, where the A's are going. It's just kind of a, it's just a situation they found themselves in without a stadium ready right now, and what happened in Oakland. So you're parked in Sacramento, you're heading to Vegas. I mean, there's a patch on the uniform that says Las Vegas. That situation is going to be taken care of. The Rays one is, a little bit messier without knowing what that future is. But you probably have to figure out where that's going to go before you start talking about expansion. But there are certainly, teams and owners and, their ownership groups, I should say, that are eager to jump in and get into this. So I don't know how long that takes to play out, but I think as you talk about it, as people talk about it, it's not something that gets shot down as something that is just not going to happen.
So right now, within the game, analytics has played an important role in some areas. Is it still as prominent, or have you seen more ad-libbing by managers and management in using analytics but then putting their own touch to it?
I think, as with anything else, there's probably, the more people you get who understand it or who grew up understanding it, the easier it is for them to kind of toe the line that you're talking about and have a little bit more feel for how to implement. And I think there are a lot of guys, and it's not completely new. I mean, listen, Joe Girardi was hired by the Yankees in 2008 and brought with him a binder that he got laughed at for having a binder of this big thick binder of information in a dugout next to him that he would consult. Well, I mean, that's, it's all the same style and kind of information that is being used now. But there's a feel that goes with it that, that the managers, if they're doing their job right, they'll know what to, how that works. There is a bigger picture in mind of a 6-month season. So you can't just keep running out the same pitchers or the same matchups. Guys are going to, be dinged up a little bit here and there, and you're going to know that, but you're going to not want the other team to know that. So, you can't, if you're leaving a pitcher in too long, and when everybody knows that you should probably take him out and bring in a reliever, well, there's probably a reason for that, And that's the thing that I've always, it's the thing that I think we always tried to do when you're in a clubhouse or a press conference setting after a game, is we all see the same things. They all see what we see. When they're playing a certain guy more than fans want, or they're making moves that don't make sense from a standpoint, like, they know all the reasons why it doesn't make sense, but they're still doing it. So there's a reason they're not telling us, right? And I think that's some of the thing that gets a little bit messy with, it's why a lot of it is rooted in analytics, and a lot of it is rooted in just stuff that managers historically don't want to give away about their teams. And I think that's just part of the disconnect sometimes, because it used to be very easy to say, well, this guy's left on left. I know what to do here. Runners at first and second, or runner on third base, infield in. I know what to do that. But it's not as simple as that anymore. There are lots of different factors that teams are paid to win games. They're still trying to win the games. That's their livelihood, and their people get hired and fired if you depending on how many games you win. So all the reasons they're doing things, while on the surface it feels like they don't make sense, they don't know what they're doing, like they're working with variables they're not telling us, but they are loaded up with information, and that's not going to change. There are people who know I guess the more personal nature of managing, and the people they're dealing with, and I mean, all the good managers know these things. It's just that sometimes you're not able to disclose them publicly, and that's probably a source of frustration when you're talking about fans who don't understand certain moves, or media covering them, because they don't always have to tell us the truth when we ask them a question like that.
Exactly. Sweeny, always a pleasure. Great to have you with us. Thanks so much for all the great insight. I always enjoy it.
Steve, I'm headed out to the stadium tonight, so good luck to your Red Sox.
They'll need it. Although Bueller's going tonight, so that's not so bad. All right.
Yeah, because, yesterday was Bueller's day off.
Yeah. Bueller. All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Steve. Have a good one.
Safe. Bye. All right, we'll come back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
And of course, you look at Major League Baseball to this point. Here we are, early June. Some things are taking shape in Major League Baseball. I mean, the Yankees, to their credit, have played pretty well. They're playing better than .600 ball. The Tigers have been tremendous. They've been the best team in the American League. The Mets are playing better than .600 ball. And the Dodgers are playing as the Dodgers. And the Phillies have kind of hit a little bit of a rut. I mean, they've allowed the Mets to pass them over the last 10 games because the Phils are 3-7. They've lost 2 in a row. The Mets are 7-3 over the last 10. But yeah.
I was just going to say, and Jesus Luzardo has come back to earth.
Yeah. That happens.
I think his ERA went from 2.53 to 4-something in 2 starts.
Well, that's kind of a big jump.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big jump. Yeah. But then there's the Rockies, who are red hot. They have won 3 in a row.
Swept the Marlins?
Yes, very impressive. In fact, the entire Marlins team was fired. Speaking of which, Pete DeBoer, met him once. And I don't mean like in an interview situation. Just met him, talked with him. Yeah, really personally liked him. I think he's a heck of a coach. He's taken Dallas to the Western Conference Final 3 consecutive years. And today the Stars fired him. I'll never forget Pitt. Now, Jeff Capel's the coach at Pitt now. But Jamie Dixon was the coach at Pitt. He succeeded Howland, Ben Howland. And he was able to make the NCAA tournament, make some runs into the second weekend. Okay? And, but the complaint at Pitt from the boosters was that, well, look, he can only get us to the Sweet 16. So there was a not so mutual parting of the ways, but Jamie eventually went back to his alma mater, and that's TCU. Pitt hasn't sniffed the tournament since. So how's that Sweet 16 run going? Sometimes you have a tendency to overthink these things. I think the Dallas Stars just overthought it. We need a new voice. He can only take us so far. Sorry, I'm not buying. I don't buy that stuff.
Maybe Edmonton's just been better than you.
Yeah. They appear to have a guy named Connor McDavid.
I feel the same thing. I feel the same way about them firing Thibodeau.
Again, you don't know what's happening internally, but I never heard a bad thing about DeBoer from anybody.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue. Subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
You an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, great to have you with us this half hour, brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. And ready-to-drink cocktails such as Crown Royal, Jack Daniels, High Noon. And the Pickle Bar, led by the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. The king has arrived, ladies and gentlemen.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Great, congratulations. You got Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, how about that one for them? It's really interesting, is that I have not met a single Steelers fan that has any enthusiasm whatsoever to signing Aaron Rodgers. None.
Well, if he's not the quarterback, who is?
Mason Rudolph. And the bottom line is, I think Steeler fans would rather lose with Mason Rudolph and get a top 10 pick than be 9-8, 10-7 with Aaron Rodgers and pick 22nd again.
Yeah, but you know what? I was surprised to see how good his numbers were last year.
Well, especially in the second half of the year.
27 touchdown passes. He threw for 3,500 yards. He did not have a bad year.
The last 10 games,
those are better than most quarterbacks in the league.
Well, the last 10 games, he threw 18 touchdown passes and only 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's good.
Yeah, it is. And he'll have I think a decent offensive line to work with. That'll help. I mean, I'm going to see Pat Freiermuth next week. I'm sure he'll have some level of enthusiasm for having Rodgers in camp. And look, this again is something that Steeler fans are not juiced about. It's a one-year deal, and I think they want to get a high draft pick. I think they prefer that than being on the verge of making or getting into the playoffs and being eliminated right away.
No, that's been their MO for the last 10 years. They haven't really won anything since Roethlisberger left. So
no, and I felt that Roethlisberger, in his last year where he was, Roethlisberger spent most of his career being great. His final year, he was under the category, I think, of good. And that's actually been the best quarterback play they've had in the last 5 years, was his last year when he was not quite close to what his greatness was.
If the Steelers' defense plays well, they can definitely run the ball. They've got the receivers, and he has the year he had last year. I think they can go far in the playoffs. I mean, people can laugh at you and say, "What, are you kidding me?" But look at his numbers last year. I mean, that'll match up with any top 10 quarterback in the league, wouldn't it?
Well, look, let's start with this. Just based on just opinion, Rodgers is the third best quarterback in his own division. You have Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow.
Right.
Defensively, the Ravens are probably a little bit better than the Steelers. The Bengals are not. The wide receivers for Cincinnati are superior. I mean, they've got a lot to overcome here. That's 4 of their opponents right there.
Yeah, well, but that doesn't mean a rookie quarterback or any quarterback is going to come in and do anything.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have to beat those teams head up, period. And then Mason Rudolph's not going to do it. And
no, but
because you bring in all these rookie quarterbacks, they're a hit or miss. I mean, that's not. I know he's not the future, but I sure as heck would take a chance. Why not?
Well, the Steelers...
Your defense is as good as any of those other... Well, the Bengals have no defense. They won't even sign the freaking best guy they have, so probably because they can't, because they gave all the money to the other guys, but I don't know. Everyone's condemning this, and I'm like, yeah, but look at his numbers. I mean, it's the NFL is, what are you going to do for me today? It's not this waiting and waiting and waiting. It doesn't. It never. Look at the Giants. What are they waiting for?
Well, look, the one thing about Rodgers is that, and I think he got a better understanding of this in the second half of last season, is that there are certain ad-lib plays that he made in his Green Bay days.
Yep.
That because of age and the Achilles injury, the mind says let's do it, but the body can't quite cash the same check. He can't quite turn in certain ways or ad-lib in certain ways or be quick enough to buy himself an extra second or two to make a play that he used to. And he has to have I think he had a better understanding of that in the second half of last year, and he has to have an understanding of that with Pittsburgh. Hey, if it's not there, I'm not going to be able to ad-lib my way out of it like I did 5 to 10 years ago because my body just won't allow me to do that anymore.
He's also I don't care, professional athlete, everyday Joe. Your first year after an Achilles injury, it's not ready yet. You're
70%.
Yeah, and I would say by the end of the year, he was starting to feel okay. And then he started to put up numbers. Plus he had, what was it, Davante Adams?
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway.
Alan Lazard, Davante Adams, all those guys.
I think that the head coach can handle him. He's the best, arguably, top 5 coach in all of football his entire career.
Yeah.
I mean, he handled, what's his name, who was a nutcase there, the wide receiver.
Oh, Pickens? Yeah.
No, before him.
You talking about Brown?
Yeah, what's his full name?
Antonio
Brown, yeah.
He handled Antonio Brown, and those were Antonio Brown's best years were with Pittsburgh, and Tomlin handled him. So I think he can, and Antonio Brown was, a troublemaker where, Rodgers is quirky, but he's not a troublemaker,
Right.
So.
Look, the Steelers have been among a select few that have defied the system of the NFL. The Patriots, for a long period of time, did that. Green Bay has sort of done that over time. The way the NFL is supposed to work is that you're supposed to go through 3 or 4 years of prosperity, go to like 2 to 3 years of despair, and return to prosperity. The Steelers have at least kept themselves in the mix, just like the Patriots kept themselves at a high level in the mix.
Yep.
Just like the Packers have kept themselves in the mix. But that's not how the league is supposed to work, and the Steelers in some ways have defied that, and I think they're trying to do it for one more year to defy it.
Well, it's because of their head coach. So.
Oh, he has a lot to do with it. And this is what I always love, is when I hear somebody say, well, they need to hear a different voice.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay, so in college, the players change over if they stay the entire time. They're only there 3 to 4 years. It changes over all the time. In the NFL, if you're coaching for 10 years, how many of the same guys do you still have? You don't. Okay, you know who needs to hear the new voice? The media and the fans.
Well, and the players are different. What do you think of Rafael Devers?
Devers is obviously a good hitter, can hit all fields, has really good power to the opposite field, is a mediocre fielder at best. They moved him to DH. Now they've talked about him going to first base. And he's like, I'm not, right? And he said no. And look, I mean, I don't blame him on that because, believe it or not, to be a DH, you have to adjust mentally to it if you're doing it on an everyday basis because you're not in the field playing. It's not like I'm going to go out, play in the field, come in, hit, you get into a pattern of doing that. As a DH, you got to do other stuff between innings to keep yourself loose, warm, cages, things like that, and you get into a routine of doing that. So I can understand why you'd have some apprehension about that. But you also have to do. You also have to do.
To me, that's the problem. That's why I brought it up with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the players and the coaches and the guy. They're paying that man $30 million.
Right.
His answer should be, "Whatever you need, coach, I'll do."
Right. No, I understand. No, I understand.
I would fire him in a minute. I would put him on the trade block. Who wants him? Get out of town. All they care about is, oh, yeah, but he's our best hitter. So what? You're not winning with him. Get him out of town. And that has ruined the Red Sox. He is a cancer in that clubhouse because he's like, no, I'm not doing it. They could, and Cora is stuck. Because if you put him in the field, they could put anybody at DH. And that opens up his lineup. And because Devers won't move, they're bringing up rookies. They're bringing up... when you're getting paid that much money, you don't tell them what you're going to do. Right. I'm sorry, I don't. That was just...
Well, part of this is a Craig Breslow problem. Look,
he's
you go
a numbers guy.
Yeah, you go out and you sign Anthony Rizzo, and you may not get the greatest batting average, but your infield's going to improve.
Yep.
And he can play for you. He's a great clubhouse guy. For whatever reason,
won a World Series.
He refuses to do it, and I don't understand why. It's like he acts like it's not even an option. Here's one for you. Make a phone call. He's only 35 years old. He's not 55.
Yeah. No, you nailed it. It's Breslow. He is an analytics guy. There are even rumors that they're grabbing some of these players and saying, look, what's it? His last name, the second baseman for the Sox.
Christian Campbell?
Yes. That they've told him, analytics says that you should never swing at a certain pitch. Analytics says you should never. They have screwed him up so much. Why don't you just go up the bat and you've been a hitter? You made it to the major leagues. That means you can hit the ball. Hit the ball. Leave the players alone and stop it with all these stupid numbers and all this. Now they're going out there like robots, and it's not working for them. There is a reason why they've lost 17 one-run games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's because they don't know how to hit, and they're not going up there and knocking runs in. They're leaving men on base. If they won half those games, they'd be in first place. And I'm not a Red Sox fan. I'm not sticking up, and I'm not bringing up the Red Sox. Sports has a problem. I mean, I did the numbers here because I want to retire. In 28 years of running this business, I have brought in an estimated $12 million, okay? And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And then I think, wait a minute. The kid who's going to be a freshman quarterback at Michigan is going to make more before he even throws a football than it took me 28 years to do with a crew of people.
Right.
That's a problem, man. If people don't think that's a problem, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
They're paying these guys way too much money for what they're worth. I heard the best example was, you know what? Yeah, they deserve to get paid because it's a full-time job now, being a high-level athlete in school. So we'll give you a free education and $60,000 a year. We know you can't work. We'll give you $60,000 a year and a free education. If that's unfair, what am I missing?
Yeah, well, Larry Ellison of Oracle, who's not a Michigan grad, but is either married or he's dating a Michigan grad. That's how that came up. And let's face it, let's give Oracle credit. There's a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money there, man.
Yeah, well, but it shouldn't be that way. The richest school's going to win? I don't know.
But they
should have a flat salary for these kids. They don't need that kind of money. And then now they're saying it can affect the pro level because they're making more money in college without the pressure. Guaranteed money.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the analytics part because to me, part of sports that makes it great is the creativity of it.
Exactly.
The ability, there's so many ad-lib moments in sports, you can't put numbers to you. And the element of, to me, there are multiple ways to win. Okay? Multiple ways to win. And I can list them all here if you want, because I've done a couple of games in my career.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is analytics. But the difference between me talking about ways to win and somebody in analytics is the analytics, it's the only way to win. I look at it as there's multiple ways. Oh, and by the way, on a given day, that's one of them. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they can't seem to understand that concept that they're a way to win, not the way to win.
Who has won with just analytics? That would be my question. Look what happened last night. You watched the game?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. OKC led the whole game. But there was a point in the fourth quarter that you could feel Indiana coming back, and that they were now controlling the game. And that wasn't analytics. That was heart. That was, we're not going to quit. You can't measure a man's heart. You can't, and the momentum of the game changed, and that's not analytics.
Well, here I'll give you a better part. The end of the game, Rick Carlisle has a timeout. Now, what have we heard for the last 45 years, especially on college basketball broadcasts? And again, there's no disrespect to Dick Vitale, but he's always been one of the primary proponents of this. You got to call a timeout. Got to call a timeout. Got to call a timeout. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Indiana had a timeout last night.
They did not use it.
He didn't use it. He had Oklahoma City backpedaling. He had a veteran with the ball in his hands. And normally, if the game is tied, okay, great. That game wasn't tied.
No.
That game was not tied. And he said, I'm going to put the ball into the hands of my best player. We're going to get them backpedaling. He gives me the best shot to win. I don't need a timeout.
And you know what? That's the first question that the woman asked, what's his name, Halliburton?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first question. You had a timeout. Do you think you should have used it? The guy just won the game. Good question.
But again,
no, we shouldn't have
practice.
used it because we knew the coach had already called the play.
Right.
And we knew what we were going to do.
And they
These
practice.
They're professional athletes. They know what they're doing.
Well, they practice it all the time. I mean, even on a college level. Do you know how many times I see end-of-game situations, whether it's sideline out of bounds, baseline out of bounds, or full court out of bounds? How many times I see them run those plays? And then
5,000.
Right. And when you sit there and it's done and a guy doesn't call a timeout and gets criticized, okay? Or a guy calls a timeout and that's the best play you could come up with? I mean, guys, they run this all the time.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, like every day, all the time. And so if you have a young team, you do want to call a timeout because you want to make sure, hey, especially early in the season, do we have all of our ducks in a row? Okay? Everybody know where you're supposed to be. But if you have veterans and you've practiced it, they know where they're supposed to go and why. Because now, as a coach, you have trust in them and they trust you.
Yeah, and almost like what we were talking about with analytics and feeling the game. The coach can feel the game. I mean, he may feel like, you know what, they're helter-skelter tonight. I got to call a timeout now and make sure we got our ducks in a row. That I can see. That everybody is like on an adrenaline load, Just calm them down. Okay, let's run what we run well. I can see that, but you're right. They know exactly what to do in that situation. They've practiced it. So,
I've been around teams
over and over again.
I've been around teams where, on a basketball sense, where free throws is struggling at the free throw line as a team. Could be in the 60s, And they'll get this question like, do you guys practice free throws? No, really? That's a great idea. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. That's a great idea. Hey, could you write that down? That's great. How about your 3-point percentage? You guys practice threes? No, you know what? Doggone it. I think we should include that in our regimen. Thanks for bringing that up.
Note to self. Free throws. What did I forget to do at practice today?
Oh, we didn't shoot free throws.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's right. Yeah, no. You mean the ones where you've got 2 shots at the line, and if you miss either one of them, the entire team has to run? Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah. You mean
I got to admit, if there were 20,000 people watching me shoot, I would never make one.
Oh, it could be in an empty gym. I wouldn't make it. I mean, come on.
I'd be like, everybody's watching me. Yeah, they are.
I mean. It's like, next week I'm going to go to the U.S. Open, okay? Down at Oakmont and cover it. And it's what's interesting about it. This is why I always tell everybody, these guys, you'll hear somebody go, oh, he stinks. No. There are 8 billion people in the world, 156 of them in the U.S. Open. None of them stink. They just aren't as good as Scotty Scheffler.
Exactly. Hey, if you're going to be there, find a camera and wave to me.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to
jump up and down.
I mean, I can work whatever, but I'm just going to work the practice round on Wednesday.
Okay, I got you.
So.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well. Have a good weekend, guys. We got to start getting ready to have our football picks.
Yeah, got to start working on it right now.
Yeah. So.
Sounds great. All those Aaron Rodgers picks.
Have a good weekend.
All
Bye,
right.
Todd.
See you, King.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. Big week coming up next week, including Oakmont on Wednesday. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.